The goal of this video is to give you a high-level overview of this GitHub project. To do so, I want to cover what we're trying to accomplish and establish some common understanding of the term DevOps. As we say on the main page here, DevOps for Dynamics 365 is becoming a popular topic. So the goal of this project is to help Dynamics 365 solution builders understand and accelerate their implementation of DevOps practices with Dynamics 365 and Visual Studio Team services. Now, it's certainly possible to implement DevOps practices with Dynamics 365 using some other technology than Visual Studio Team services. However, the purpose of this project is to focus on VSTS to drive the DevOps process. So what is DevOps? I think Wikipedia's DevOps page does a great job of answering that question. As it reads here, DevOps, a click compound of development and operations, is a software engineering practice that aims at unifying software development, the people who build applications, and software operations, the people who run those applications on some sort of infrastructure. And I think this next sentence is the important part. The main characteristic of the DevOps movement is to strongly advocate automation and monitoring at all steps of software construction, from integration, testing, releasing, to deployment and infrastructure management. DevOps aims at shorter development cycles, increased deployment frequency, more dependable releases in close alignment with business objectives. I'm a fan of this visual when diving a little bit deeper into DevOps. Dynamics 365 provides a no-code, low-code rapid application development platform. And given that DevOps typically starts with using a source control system, it's not uncommon for people to conclude that no-code, low-code rapid application development is in conflict with DevOps. So I think it's important to compare and contrast the traditional DevOps process with a full code approach to applying the same concepts to a no-code, low-code platform such as what Dynamics 365 provides. So generally, the DevOps process starts with planning, defining what work you're going to do, how you're going to break that work down into more composable parts, and how you're going to assign that work to different people on your team. And since most people who practice DevOps come from an agile development background, the concept of planning small pieces of work which can be rapidly implemented and delivered to end users is par for the course with DevOps. So once you've done your basic planning, it's all about creating. And in this case, in traditional software development, this is coding. This is different users building out the different pieces of functionality, checking in or committing and pushing their changes into a source control system, having that traceability of the work they're assigned to what they put into the source control system. This is quite often done with a test-driven development mindset where developers build what are called unit tests to verify that the code they've authored passes a set of tests well before that code is deployed to some environment. Once that code is verified, it's packaged up, or what's typically called built, into the deployable form of the source code, which in the case of .NET development means .NET DLLs. In the case of web front-end development, that can mean HTML files and minified JavaScript files, images, etc. After the packaging process, what usually happens is a release, and you typically release off of the build, the deployable form of the source code that's been packaged up, and configure it to run across multiple environments. Now that could be a dev environment, a test environment, a staging environment, and ultimately a production environment. From there, you typically monitor the application, often using what people refer to as telemetry, information about what your application is doing, how end users are using your application, how your application is performing, etc. You also monitor your end users who might be testing the application to get feedback from them on what they're seeing in a particular release. And it's the combination of monitoring both from a logs and telemetry perspective, as well as end user feedback that feeds into the next planning, create, verify, package, release, configure, monitor cycle. And because we're introducing automation, the ability to get through this cycle can happen much faster, thereby getting capabilities in front of your end users earlier on in the development cycle, gathering feedback, and ideally delivering something of more value to their end users because you've embraced the DevOps process. And oftentimes, I hear people even say, oh, we don't need DevOps because we've got a no-code, low-code rapid application development platform. And I generally don't agree with that statement. I strongly believe that you can apply these same principles to a no-code, low-code platform like we have in Dynamics 365. And that is absolutely the intent of this GitHub project. It's certainly not to suggest that if what you're doing with Dynamics 365 is working for you today, you should change. In fact, even though I would encourage you to give DevOps a fair look, if you walk away from looking at applying the DevOps process to Dynamics 365 and conclude that it doesn't help you build better business applications with Dynamics 365, that's a reasonable conclusion. However, if you're looking for things like the ability to take your point and click configurations, and as you make units of change, put those changes in a source control system so that you have traceability back to the work that was assigned to make those changes, and the ability to do what source control systems do well, which is look at two files, whether they be JavaScript files or XML files, and see line by line what's changed from a historical perspective. If you want to do more testing up front, so that when you deploy to your environment, you know with a higher level of confidence the code that you deploy is high quality. If you want to be able to automate the packaging of all those things and test moving them from multiple dev environments to test environments so that when you move them to production, you have a consistent way of deploying to production in an automated fashion, then you might want to consider applying DevOps processes to your business application development with Dynamics 365. So how is the DevOps process different? Well, planning is fundamentally the same, but the creation process with Dynamics 365 is different because the majority of the business application is built through point and click configuration. However, there happen to be tools in the Dynamics 365 SDK which enable you to take a point and click configuration, extract it out of the environment, and take the contents of it and turn it into source controllable XML files. However, you still create some code. You create JavaScript files, HTML web resources, create .NET plugins, workflow activities, which get combined with those point and click configurations. And so to really be able to see the big picture of all the changes in your system, it's a good idea to source control not only your code, but your point and click configurations. And that code that you write can be verified using unit testing. And now that you've got your point and click configurations and your code, which you've verified with unit testing in a source control system, you can then package it up or build it into its deployable form, including things like sample data and initial data, or the installation of multiple solution packages in a specified order, and run that through a release process, which deploys to dev, test, staging environments, and test the process of deploying those changes over and over and over again, as well as providing the ability to monitor what you deploy to those different environments through things like plugin tracing, organization insights, and activity logging, all features of Dynamics 365, to get that telemetry in addition to your end user feedback, and then repeat that cycle until you've delivered an application that is generally usable to your broader end user population. So we've talked about the goal of this GitHub project to demonstrate applying DevOps processes to Dynamics 365 using Visual Studio Team Services. We've talked about what DevOps is. We've compared and contrasted traditional all-code application development DevOps with, at a high level, what DevOps may look like with Dynamics 365. In the next video, I'll walk you through the assets which exist in this GitHub project that give tangible examples of applying the DevOps process to Dynamics 365 using Visual Studio Team Services.